Under the scorching Texas sun on I-45, Sarah Thompson, a tough single mom with grease-stained hands, pulls her battered Chevy Silverado over to help a stranded stranger. His sleek Tesla's dead, and he's got a $2 billion deal on the line. But when Sarah's emerald ring catches his eye, his polished facade cracks and a buried memory stirs. Why does this ring haunt him? What secret ties this mechanic to a powerful CEO? As a shadowy figure watches from afar, plotting to keep the truth buried, Sarah's world is about to collide with a past she thought she'd left behind. Will she uncover the lies threatening her family, or will someone silence her first? Stick around to find out, and hit that subscribe button for more gripping stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The August sun scorched the asphalt of I-45 near Huntsville, Texas, turning the air into a thick, humid haze that clung to everything. It was 2025, and the highway stretched like a ribbon through the flat, sun-bleached plains, dotted only by occasional billboards and the distant hum of passing trucks. Sarah Thompson gripped the wheel of her battered Chevy Silverado, her curly brown hair tied back in a messy bun, her hands stained with the familiar grease of a mechanic's life. Beside her, her 14-year-old daughter Emma sketched in a notebook, her own curly hair falling over her eyes. The radio crackled with a country tune, but Sarah's mind was on the stack of unpaid bills waiting at Carter's Auto Repair, the shop she'd poured her heart into since her Uncle James took her in. Ahead, a sleek Tesla, Moon Doe S, sat stranded on the shoulder, its silver curves glinting like a mirage. A man in a tailored suit stood beside it, his blonde hair damp with sweat, cursing under his breath as he stared at the hood. Sarah slowed the truck, her instincts kicking in. "Mom, you sure about this?" Emma asked warily, glancing at the stranger. "He looks like trouble." Sarah chuckled softly, her voice warm but firm. "Trouble's just a car that needs fixin', sweetheart. Stay put." She parked, grabbed her toolbox, and stepped out, the heat hitting her like a fist. The man, Michael Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Enterprises, barely noticed her at first, his eyes fixed on his 80-0 watch. 11:43, he muttered anxiously, his polished voice fraying. A $2 billion investor meeting in Houston loomed, and he was 30 minutes from disaster. He slammed the Tesla's hood, a puff of smoke escaping, and finally saw Sarah approaching, her work boots crunching on gravel. "You a mechanic?" he asked, his tone sharp with skepticism, eyes narrowing at her oil-stained jeans. Sarah planted her feet, unfazed. "Yep, name's Sarah. What's the problem?" Her voice was steady, but her gaze was sharp, sizing him up like a faulty engine. Michael hesitated, his arrogance faltering under her confidence. "It just stopped. Battery's overheating, I think." Sarah popped the hood, her hands moving with practiced ease. "Coolant leak," she said after a moment, her tone matter-of-fact. "You're lucky it didn't fry the system. I can patch it, get you to Houston." She didn't wait for permission, diving into the engine with a wrench, her movements precise. Emma watched from the truck, her pencil pausing as she studied Michael. He didn't seem like the usual customers at Carter's folks with rusty pickups and stories to share. This guy was all city polish, but his panic felt real. Another vehicle rumbled up a dusty semi-truck and Tom Jenkins, a burly trucker with a gray beard, leaned out. "Everything okay, Sarah?" he called warmly, holding out a bottle of water. Sarah grinned, taking it. "Just saving a city boy, Tom. Thanks." Tom nodded, his kind eyes flicking to Michael. "Holler if you need me," he said, pulling away. Michael watched, unsettled by Sarah's ease with strangers, her quiet authority. He wasn't used to people who didn't bow to his status. "You do this often?" he asked, trying to regain control, his voice tinged with curiosity. Sarah didn't look up, tightening a hose. "Fix cars, every day. Stop for fancy suits? Not so much." Her dry humor caught him off guard, and he almost smiled. But then his gaze snagged on her hand, the silver ring on her finger, its emerald stone catching the sun. A memory flickered, faint but sharp. An oak tree, a promise, a girl's face. His breath hitched, but he said nothing, the moment slipping away as Sarah stood, wiping her hands on a rag. "Done," she said briskly. "You've got 2 hours before it heats up again. Get it to a shop in Houston." Michael reached for his wallet, pulling out a wad of bills. "How much?" he asked, his tone softer now, almost respectful. Sarah waved him off. "Keep it, just don't break down again." As she handed him the wrench, the ring glinted once more, and Michael's eyes lingered, a question forming he couldn't voice. Sarah noticed, her expression hardening slightly, but she turned back to her truck without a word. Unbeknownst to them, Victor Crane, Michael's COO, watched through a tracker app on his phone from a Houston high-rise. He'd tampered with the Tesla's coolant system that morning, a calculated move to delay Michael and sow doubt among investors. Victor's slick black hair gleamed as he smirked, imagining Michael's failure. But Sarah's quick fix had foiled his plan, and his smirk faded. "Who's this mechanic?" he muttered, his voice cold. He tapped a number, already plotting his next move to keep Michael in check. Sarah climbed into her Silverado, Emma's eyes still on Michael as he started the Tesla. "He looked at your ring weird, Mom," Emma said quietly, her voice curious. Sarah's fingers brushed the emerald, a weight settling in her chest. "Just a rich guy with too much on his mind," she said, but her tone wavered, a memory stirring she'd buried long ago. She pulled onto I-45, the shop waiting, but the encounter lingered like the heat, heavy with questions she wasn't ready to face. As the Tesla roared toward Houston, Michael's mind churned. The ring's emerald glow, a puzzle he couldn't shake, pulling him toward a past he'd forgotten and a truth that would change everything. The late August sun dipped low over Huntsville, Texas, casting long shadows across Carter's auto repair at 3011 TX19. The shop's weathered sign flickered under a neon buzz, its oil-stained concrete floors gleaming faintly with the day's sweat and grit. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of motor oil and hot metal, punctuated by the hum of an old box fan struggling against the lingering heat. Sarah Thompson leaned over a rusty Ford pickup, her curly brown hair tied back, her hands deftly wielding a wrench as she tightened a bolt. Her 14-year-old daughter, Emma, sat on a stool nearby, sketching a sparrow in her notebook, her curly hair mirroring her mother's. The day's work was winding down, but Sarah's mind was still on the stranger from I-45, Michael Reynolds, the CEO whose Tesla she'd patched up, and the way his eyes had lingered on her emerald ring. Lisa Hayes, Sarah's best friend and the shop's cashier, wiped down the counter, her short red hair catching the fan's breeze. "You've been quiet since that city guy," Lisa said warmly, her voice teasing but concerned. "He tip you good at least?" Sarah snorted, not looking up. "Tried to. I told him to keep his money." Lisa raised an eyebrow, grinning. "Girl, you're too proud for your own good." But Sarah's smile faded, her fingers brushing the silver ring on her left hand, its emerald stone glinting under the shop's fluorescent lights. A memory stirred painful, distant, like a bruise she'd learned to ignore. The shop door creaked open, and Michael stepped in, his tailored suit replaced by a simple white shirt and jeans, his blonde hair slightly mussed. He carried a nervous energy, his eyes scanning the garage before landing on Sarah. Emma's pencil paused, her gaze sharpening protectively. "Mom, that's him," she whispered, her voice wary. Sarah straightened, wiping her hands on a rag, her expression guarded. "Mr. Reynolds," she said evenly, her tone cool but curious. "Car break down again?" Michael hesitated, his voice low and unsteady. "No, it's something else." He stepped closer, his eyes flicking to her ring. "That ring, where'd you get it?" Sarah's hand instinctively closed, her heart quickening. "Been mine a long time," she said curtly, her voice edged with defiance. "Why's it matter?" Michael swallowed, his face pale, with a mix of guilt and recognition. "I think I gave it to you a long time ago." The words hung heavy, and Sarah's breath caught, a flood of memories breaking through her carefully built walls. It was 2005, under an oak tree at Buckner Children's Home in Dallas, where the air smelled of grass and hope. Young Sarah, 14, sat beside a skinny blonde boy Michael, both of them carving wooden birds with borrowed knives. Reverend Paul Miller, the orphanage chaplain, had watched them, his white hair glinting as he offered gentle encouragement. "You're patient, Sarah," he'd said softly. "That's a gift." Michael, teased by other kids for his clumsiness, had fumbled his knife, but Sarah guided his hand, her voice steady. "Slow down. It's not about strength." He'd grinned, rare and bright, and slipped the emerald ringy's Mother Santo her finger. "I'll come back," he'd promised earnestly, his eyes shining. "I won't forget you." But he never returned, and Buckner closed soon after, scattering Sarah into a world that broke her trust. Back in the present, Sarah's eyes narrowed, her voice trembling with suppressed anger. "You don't get to walk in here and act like you know me," she said fiercely, stepping closer. That was a kid's promise, and it broke a long time ago. Michael flinched, his voice cracking. "I didn't mean to. I was a kid too. I didn't know." Lisa moved beside Sarah, her hand resting lightly on her shoulder, her voice gentle but firm. "Maybe you should go, mister." Emma stood, her sketchbook clutched tightly, her eyes darting between them, sensing the weight of her mother's pain. Outside, a black SUV idled across the street. Its Dravera thug hired by Victor Crane watching the shop. Victor, in his Houston office, monitored Michael's movements via a car tracker, his slick black hair gleaming under LED lights. He'd caught wind of Michael's detour to Huntsville and sensed a threat. "Keep her quiet," he'd told the thug coldly, hoping to intimidate Sarah before she stirred trouble. But the thug hesitated, seeing Lisa lock the shop door, and drove off, arriving too late to act. Victor cursed, his plan thwarted, but his mind already schemed anew. Sarah turned away, her hands shaking as she grabbed a wrench, needing something solid to anchor her. Michael lingered, his voice soft, almost pleading. "I'm sorry, Sarah, I had to know if it was you." She didn't respond, her silence a wall, but her fingers brushed the ring again. Its emerald, a silent witness to a promise unkept. Emma approached, her voice small but curious. "Mom, what's he talking about?" Sarah forced a smile, her tone softening. "Old stories, Em. Nothing to worry about." As Michael left, the shop's fan whirred on, stirring Emma's sketches on the wall sparrows, oaks, a faded photo tucked in a drawer Sarah hadn't opened in years. She moved to the counter, her hand hovering over a locked drawer, her heart pounding. Inside was a snapshot from Buckner, her and Michael, grinning under that oak tree. She didn't open it, not yet. But the weight of the past pressed harder, whispering of secrets deeper than a broken promise. The shop's lights flickered, and Sarah's gaze hardened, a resolve forming that would lead her to confront not just Michael, but a truth buried far too long. The night settled heavily over Huntsville, Texas, the air thick with the lingering August heat. Above Carter's Auto Repair at 3011 TX19, Sarah Thompson's small apartment was a sanctuary of worn comforts, a sagging couch, a chipped coffee table, and walls adorned with Emma's colorful sketches. The faint hum of the shop's neon sign drifted through the open window, mingling with the chirp of crickets. Sarah sat on the hardwood floor, her curly brown hair loose, her oil-stained hands clutching a locked cedar box. The emerald ring on her finger glinted under the dim glow of a desk lamp, a silent reminder of Michael Reynolds' visit hours earlier. His words, "I gave it to you," had cracked open a vault of memories she'd buried deep, and now they spilled out, raw and unrelenting. Emma, her 14-year-old daughter, was asleep in the next room, her sketchbook open to a half-finished sparrow. Sarah's heart ached at the thought of her daughter's innocent curiosity, sparked by Michael's cryptic talk of old promises. She traced the box's carved lid, her fingers trembling. It wasn't just a keepsake. It was a Pandora's box of pain and proof, holding the truth about her mother, Ellen Thompson, and the man who'd torn her family apart, Richard Reynolds, Michael's adoptive father and CEO of Reynolds Enterprises. The weight of that truth pressed against her chest, a mix of fear and fury she'd carried since she was a girl. Sarah's mind drifted to 2005, when Buckner Children's Home in Dallas closed abruptly, scattering its kids like leaves in a storm. At 14, she'd been sent to a foster home in Fort Worth, a place that promised care but delivered cruelty. The foster mother, Mrs. Hargrove, had forced her to scrub floors until her hands bled, her voice cold. "Earn your keep, girl." Sarah endured for months, her spirit fraying until she ran away, hitchhiking to Huntsville, where her uncle, James Carter, took her in. James, a grizzled ex-Marine with calloused hands and a quiet strength, taught her to wield a wrench, to rebuild engines and herself. "You're tougher than steel, Sarah," he'd said warmly, his eyes crinkling. That strength had carried her through raising Emma alone, but the scars of betrayal Michael's, her mother's absent sent of her, fully healed. She unlocked the cedar box, its hinges creaking. Inside lay a decade's worth of evidence, meticulously gathered, maps of her mother's land, now the Huntsville Water Preserve, marked with red ink. A fake death certificate declaring Ellen Thompson dead in a 2007 car accident, and a stack of emails from Reynolds Enterprises hinting at a cover-up. At the top was a 2017 letter, its cursive, shaky, but unmistakable. "They made me vanish," Ellen had written, the words searing Sarah's heart. "My daughter, I didn't abandon you." Sarah had spent weeks verifying the handwriting, comparing it to old postcards, her hope warring with dread. The letter was real, proof her mother was alive, hidden by Richard Reynolds' greed for the land's underground water source. The apartment door creaked, and James stepped in, his boots heavy on the floor, his weathered face softened at the sight of the box. "Couldn't sleep, huh?" he said gently, settling into a chair. Sarah's voice broke, her tone raw. "He came back, Uncle James. Michael. After all these years, he just showed up." James's eyes darkened, his voice gruff. "That boy from Buckner? What's he want?" Sarah shook her head, her fingers clutching the letter. "He saw the ring, said he gave it to me. But it's more than that. I think he's tied to this." She gestured to the box, her voice trembling with resolve. Downstairs, Lisa Hayes was closing the shop when her phone pinged with an email, a scathing client complaint accusing Sarah of shoddy work. Lisa's eyes narrowed. The sender's address was a jumble of numbers, not a real name. "Nice try," she muttered sharply, recognizing a hack. Victor Crane, in his Houston high-rise, had sent the fake complaint to discredit Sarah, his slick black hair gleaming as he typed. He traced Michael's visit to the shop via the Tesla's tracker, and Sarah's connection to Buckner raised red flags. But Lisa, quick-witted and loyal, deleted the email before it could spread, thwarting Victor's scheme. She texted Sarah, "Some jerk tried to mess with us. Handled it. You okay?" Maria Lopez, a vibrant regular at the shop, knocked on the apartment door, her long black hair tied back. "Heard you had a rough day," she said warmly, setting down a plate of tamales. "Folks in town are talking about Reynolds Enterprises, shady deals, land grabs. You watch yourself, Sarah." Her voice carried a warning, her eyes flicking to the box. Sarah nodded, her tone steady but grateful. "Thanks, Maria. I'm not backing down." Maria's presence grounded her, a reminder of the community that had become her family. Emma stirred, her voice sleepy from the doorway. "Mom, you're up late." Sarah froze, quickly closing the box, her heart racing. "Just going through old stuff, Em," she said softly, forcing a smile. Emma's eyes lingered on the box, her voice curious. "Is it about that guy? The one with the ring?" Sarah hesitated, her tone gentle. "Maybe. Get back to bed, okay?" Emma nodded, but her glance back held a spark of intrigue, sensing secrets her mother wasn't ready to share. Sarah stood, the box heavy in her hands, her resolve hardening. Michael's return wasn't a coincidence. It was a crack in the wall of lies Richard Reynolds had built. She'd spent years hiding her pain, but now it fueled her. The emerald ring, once a symbol of betrayal, was now a beacon, guiding her toward a truth she'd fight for. As the crickets sang outside, Sarah's gaze settled on the horizon, where Houston's lights glowed faintly. Michael was there, wrestling with his own past, and soon their paths would collide again, unearthing secrets that could shatter an empire her heart. The Houston skyline glittered under the August night, a constellation of steel and glass that dwarfed the sprawling Reynolds mansion at 1001 Preston St. Its white marble columns glowed under discreet floodlights, the iron gate bearing the family crest, a silent sentinel. Inside, the mansion was a study in opulence, polished marble floors, a chandelier casting prisms across the foyer, and a towering portrait of Richard Reynolds, his stern gaze looming over the library. Michael Reynolds paced the room, his blonde hair disheveled, his tailored shirt unbuttoned at the collar. The emerald ring he'd seen on Sarah Thompson's finger in Huntsville haunted him, a splinter of memory that pierced the carefully constructed life he'd lived for decades. The weight of her words, "You don't get to act like you know me," pressed against his chest, unraveling the certainty he'd clung to as Richard's heir. Michael's life had been a script written by Richard, the CEO of Reynolds Enterprises, who adopted him at 10 after his biological son's death. The memory of that day in 2000 was sharp. A cold office at Buckner Children's Home, Richard's voice clipped as he said, "You'll be my legacy. No warmth, just purpose." Yale, Harvard, a corner office every step was choreographed, culminating in an engagement to Claire Bennett, a retail heiress whose family's merger would catapult Reynolds Enterprises into global consumer markets. But Michael felt like a pawn, his dreams buried under boardroom applause and society page headlines. The ring, a relic from his orphanage days, was a crack in that facade, whispering of a boy who'd once carved wooden birds with a girl named Sarah. Claire sat on a leather sofa, her platinum hair swept into an elegant updo, her eyes cold, but calculating. "You're distracted, Michael," she said sharply, her voice cutting through the library's silence. "The board meeting's tomorrow. You can't afford to look weak." Michael stopped pacing, his tone weary. "I'm fine, Claire. Just tired." She arched an eyebrow, her voice softening slightly, but not with warmth. "This merger is everything. My father's counting on you. So is Richard." Michael nodded, but his mind was elsewhere, fixed on Sarah's fierce gaze, the ring's emerald glow. David Kim, Michael's assistant, entered, his glasses glinting under the chandelier. At 28, David was sharp and loyal, his quick mind a lifeline in the corporate maze. "Sir, your briefcase for the meeting," he said briskly, setting it on the desk. But his eyes lingered, his voice low. "Something's off with Victor. He's been too quiet since your Huntsville trip." Michael frowned, his voice tense. "Keep an eye on him, David. I don't trust him either." David nodded, his tone cautious. "Watch your back, boss." Victor Crane, the COO, sat in his office across town, his slick black hair gleaming under LED lights. He'd planted a false report in Michael's briefcase that morning, a forged document accusing Michael of mismanaging funds. The plan was to present it at the board meeting, undermining Michael's credibility and strengthening Victor's bid for control. But Michael, restless, opened the briefcase now, flipping through papers. His eyes caught the report, its numbers glaringly off. "This isn't mine," he muttered angrily, his pulse quickening. He recognized Victor's handiwork, the subtle sabotage meant to trip him up. He tore the paper, his resolve hardening. Victor's games were dangerous, and Sarah's reappearance was no coincidence. Michael's thoughts drifted to a memory from Buckner, 2005. Reverend Paul Miller, the chaplain, had pulled him aside one day, his white hair stark against his worried eyes. "Be careful with Mr. Reynolds," he'd warned softly. "He takes what he wants, no matter the cost." Michael, a naive 15-year-old, had brushed it off, eager for a family. Now, those words echoed, chilling him. Had Richard's ruthlessness shaped more than his career? The ring, Sarah's anger, the orphanage's abrupt closure, they were pieces of a puzzle he couldn't ignore. He crossed to the library's oak shelves, his fingers tracing a hidden panel beneath a Persian rug. Richard had once boasted, "Some secrets stay off servers." Michael had seen him open a floor safe years ago, on the day he graduated Harvard. "Success isn't about fairness," Richard had said coldly, handing him a scotch. Now Michael knelt, his heart pounding, and found the safe, its lock gleaming. He didn't have the key, but its existence was a taunt, a vault of truths Richard guarded. What had he hidden? Was Sarah tied to it? Claire stood, her voice impatient. "Michael, it's late. You need rest." He rose, his tone distant. "I'll be up soon." She sighed, leaving him alone, her heels clicking on the marble. David lingered at the door, his voice low. "If you're digging, be careful. Victor's not the only one watching." Michael nodded, his voice resolute. "I need answers, David. Something's not right." As the mansion fell silent, Michael stood before Richard's portrait, its eyes seeming to follow him. The ring's memory burned Sarah's hand, guiding his, her patient voice under the oak tree. He'd promised to return, but Richard had pulled him away, reshaping him into a stranger. Now, Sarah was back, her pain a mirror to his own doubts. He had to see her again, to understand what he'd lost, and what Richard had built on lies. The safe's lock gleamed, a challenge he'd face soon. But first, he needed Sarah's truth. Outside, Houston's lights pulsed, a city of secrets waiting to unravel, drawing Michael toward a confrontation that would redefine his life. The evening sky over Huntsville, Texas, draped Carter's Auto Repair at 3011 TX19 in a soft indigo glow, the shop's neon sign flickering like a heartbeat. Crickets chirped in the warm August air, their song mingling with the faint clank of tools inside the garage. Sarah Thompson stood at a workbench, her curly brown hair tied back, her oil-stained hands tightening a bolt on a Chevy's engine. The emerald ring on her finger caught the fluorescent light, a constant reminder of Michael Reynolds' visit days ago and the cedar box of secrets she'd guarded for years. Her heart still stung from his words, "I gave it to you," and the memories of a broken promise at Buckner Children's Home. Yet, the box's contents, proof of Richard Reynolds' land grab and her mother Ellen's forced disappearance, fueled a fire in her she couldn't extinguish. The shop door creaked open, and Michael stepped in, his blonde hair mussed, his jeans and gray shirt a stark contrast to the CEO suit he'd worn on I-45. In his hand was a small wooden bird, its wings etched with S.M., a relic from their orphanage days. Sarah's breath caught, her wrench pausing mid-turn. "You again," she said warily, her voice edged with guarded pain. Michael's eyes, heavy with guilt, met hers. "Sarah, I need to talk," he said softly, his tone pleading. "About us. About Buckner." Sarah's jaw tightened, her voice sharp. "There's no us, Michael. You left. That's the story." The garage felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken history. Michael stepped closer, holding out the bird. "I carved this with you," he said earnestly, his voice cracking. "Under that oak tree. I promised I'd come back and I didn't. I'm sorry." Sarah's hand trembled as she took the bird, its rough edges a map of their shared past. Memories flooded her summers at Buckner, teaching Michael to carve his shy grin when she'd guided his knife. "I waited," she whispered fiercely, her eyes glistening. "Months, Michael. Then they shut the place down, and I was alone." Her voice broke, raw, with the weight of abandonment. Michael swallowed, his face pale. "I tried to go back," he said desperately. "Richard, my father, he forbade it. Said it was a distraction. I was a kid, Sarah. I didn't know he'd cut the funding," closed Buckner. Sarah's eyes narrowed, her voice cold. "Your father didn't just close a building. He stole my mother, my home." She crossed to a locked drawer, pulling out the cedar box from her apartment upstairs. With a steady hand, she opened it, revealing maps, a fake death certificate for Ellen Thompson, and land transfer papers for the Huntsville Water Preserve, all stamped with Richard's signature. Michael's breath hitched as he scanned the documents, his voice shaking. This can't be real." Sarah's gaze was unflinching, her tone resolute. "It's real. Your father faked my mother's death, took her land for its water. I've been collecting this for years." She pulled out a 2017 letter, Ellen's cursive trembling. "They made me vanish." Michael's hands shook as he read it, his world tilting. "Sarah, I swear, I didn't know," he said hoarsely, his eyes wide with horror. "Richard, he raised me to be his heir, but this is monstrous." Outside, a local reporter, tipped off by Victor Crane, lurked near the shop, drafting a smear about Sarah's unreliable business. Victor, in his Houston high-rise, had sent the anonymous tip to discredit Sarah, his slick black hair gleaming as he monitored Michael's movements via the Tesla's tracker. He sensed Sarah's threat, her connection to Michael a risk to Richard's empire. But Maria Lopez, a vibrant shop regular, caught wind of the rumor at a Huntsville diner. With a flurry of keystrokes, she posted a glowing review of Carter's on social media, her long black hair bouncing as she typed. "Sarah Thompson's the best mechanic in Texas. Don't believe the lies." The post went viral, drowning out the smear before it could take root, foiling Victor's plan. Sarah closed the box, her voice steady but heavy. "I've got a lead," she said quietly. "A medical facility in Beaumont. I think that's where they're keeping her." Michael's eyes met hers, a flicker of resolve breaking through his shock. "I'll help you find her," he said firmly, his tone unwavering. "I owe you that much." Sarah studied him, her heart torn between distrust and a faint hope. "Why now?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. Michael's gaze dropped to the bird, his voice raw. "Because you're the only real thing I remember from before he made me someone else." The shop's fan whirred, stirring a stack of Emma's sketches on the wall sparrows, oaks, a testament to the family Sarah fought for. She nodded, her tone cautious. "We do this my way. No promises, Michael." He agreed, his voice earnest. "No promises, just truth." The weight of their past hung between them, a fragile bridge rebuilt with shared pain. As Michael left, Sarah's fingers brushed the emerald ring, its glow a beacon in the dark. She locked the box, her mind racing toward Beaumont, where answers and dangers awaited. In Houston, Victor's schemes simmered, but Sarah and Michael's alliance was a spark that could ignite a reckoning, one Richard Reynolds would never see coming. The morning sun cast a golden haze over Beaumont, Texas, As Sarah Thompson's Chevy Silverado rumbled into the parking lot of the Jefferson County Courthouse at 1085 Pearl St. The August air was heavy, thick with humidity that clung to the skin, but Sarah's focus was razor-sharp. Her curly brown hair was tied back, her oil-stained hands gripping the wheel, the emerald ring on her finger a quiet anchor. Beside her, Michael Reynolds sat, his blonde hair catching the light, his casual jeans and shirt a far cry from his CEO polish. In the back seat, Emma, Sarah's 14-year-old daughter, clutched a sketchbook, her curly hair mirroring her mother's, her eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and unease. They were chasing a Lita medical facility tied to Reynolds Enterprises, where Sarah believed her mother, Ellen Thompson, was hidden, her life erased by Richard Reynolds' greed. The courthouse loomed ahead, its red brick facade and white columns a stoic sentinel of records and secrets. Inside, the air was cool, the marble floors creaking underfoot, the scent of old paper and dust filling the archives. Sarah carried her cedar box, its contents maps, a fake death certificate, Ellen's letter, her ammunition. "We're looking for anything on a Reynolds-funded facility," she said firmly, her voice steady but urgent. Michael nodded, his tone resolute. "I'll follow your lead, Sarah." Emma's pencil tapped her sketchbook, her voice soft. "Mom, you think Grandma's really there?" Sarah's heart tightened, her tone gentle. "I hope so, Em. That's why we're here." Karen Walsh, a courthouse clerk with brown hair and a tight bun, greeted them at the counter, her eyes nervous but kind. "You're asking about sensitive records," she said cautiously, her voice low. "Reynolds Enterprises has pull around here." Sarah leaned in, her voice earnest. "My mother's life depends on this, Karen. Please." Karen hesitated, then nodded, her tone hushed. "I'll pull what I can, but I'm risking my job." She disappeared into the archives, returning with a dusty file labeled Reynolds Foundation Medical Grants. Sarah's pulse quickened as she flipped through it, finding a document listing Ellen Thompson under psychiatric care at a facility in Beaumont, authorized by Dr. Alan Foster, a name tied to Richard's payroll. Michael's hands shook as he read, his voice hoarse. "This is her. They've kept her locked away for years." His eyes met Sarah's, a shared fury igniting. Emma, peering over, sketched a quick portrait of Ellen from an old photo in the box, her voice trembling. "She looks like you, Mom." The drawing, with Ellen's warm smile, brought tears to Sarah's eyes, her tone fierce. "We're getting her back, Em." Karen, glancing nervously at the door, slipped them another file emails from Victor Crane, Richard's coup, to Dr. Foster, discussing discreet containment and the Huntsville Water Preserve's land transfer. "Victor covered it up," Michael said angrily, his voice low. He knew. Back in Huntsville, Victor Crane's latest scheme unfolded. From his Houston high-rise, his slick black hair gleaming, he hired a thug to steal Sarah's cedar box, tracking her movements via Michael's Tesla. The thug, a burly man with a scar, crept into Carter's auto repair that afternoon, prying open Sarah's locked drawer. But James Carter, Sarah's grizzled uncle, was in the shop, his ex-Marine instincts sharp. "Hey!" he bellowed fiercely, brandishing a wrench. The thug bolted, empty-handed, as James's voice echoed. "Don't come back," James called Sarah, his tone gruff but protective. "Someone tried to break in, kid. You okay?" Sarah's grip tightened on her phone, her voice steady. "We're fine, Uncle James. Thanks for watching out." At the courthouse, Karen's voice dropped, her eyes darting. "There's more," she said urgently. "Other families lost land to Reynolds. They're buried in these files, but no one's dared to dig." Sarah's resolve hardened, her tone determined. "We're digging now." The revelation widened the scandal, tying Ellen's fate to a broader web of greed. Michael, his face pale, clutched the emails, his voice resolute. We need to find that facility, Sarah. Today. Emma, flipping through her sketches, paused at one of Michael, her voice curious. You're really sticking with us, huh? Michael smiled faintly, his tone warm. Yeah, kid. I'm not going anywhere this time. The moment bonded them, a fragile family forming amidst the stakes. The courthouse's creaking floors seemed to echo the weight of their discovery. Sarah packed the files, her mind racing. The Beaumont facility was their next stop, but Victor's interference loomed, his failed theft a warning of his desperation. As they left, Karen slipped Sarah her card, her voice soft. Call me if you need more. Be careful. Sarah nodded, her tone grateful. We will. Thank you, Karen. Outside, the sun climbed higher, the Texas heat unrelenting, but Sarah's heart burned hotter. Ellen was close, and the truth was closer. In Houston, Victor cursed, his plan thwarted, but his mind churned with new schemes. Sarah and Michael's alliance was a growing threat, one he'd need to crush. The courthouse files were a spark, and the Beaumont facility held secrets that could unravel Richard's empire. As Sarah's Silverado roared toward the facility, Emma's sketches fluttered in the back seat, each one a piece of a family she yearned to know. Michael's hand rested on the cedar box, his resolve mirroring Sarah's. The stakes were rising, and the truth was a flame they'd carry forward, no matter the cost. The glass towers of Reynolds Enterprises HQ at 811 Main St. Houston gleamed under the midday August sun, their sleek surfaces reflecting a city pulsing with ambition. Inside, the 30th floor executive suite buzzed with the hum of phones and the click of keyboards, a nerve center of corporate power. Michael Reynolds stood in his corner office, his blonde hair neatly combed, his tailored suit a mask for the turmoil within. The cedar box's revelations, Ellen Thompson's confinement, Richard Reynolds' land grab, Victor Crane's cover-up emails burned in his mind, each document a betrayal of the father who'd molded him. The emerald ring, a relic of his promise to Sarah at Buckner, weighed heavier now, a call to undo the lies he'd lived. Today, he'd confront Victor, the COO whose fingerprints were all over the scandal. The office's glass walls framed a view of Houston's sprawl, but Michael's focus was on a USB drive in his hand, loaded with copied emails from the Beaumont courthouse. Victor's messages to Dr. Alan Foster, ordering Ellen's discreet containment, were damning, tying him to Richard's crimes. Michael's heart raced, his resolve steeled by Sarah's fierce determination. He glanced at a framed photo on his desk and Claire Bennett, his fiancée, at a gala, her platinum hair perfect, her smile practiced. The engagement, a strategic merger for Reynolds Enterprises, felt hollow, another of Richard's chess moves. Victor entered, his slick black hair gleaming, his sharp suit exuding control. "Michael, you wanted to see me?" he said smoothly, his voice laced with a subtle edge. Michael's eyes narrowed, his tone icy. "What do you know about Ellen Thompson?" Victor's smile didn't falter, but his eyes flickered. "Who?" he asked casually, leaning back. Michael slammed the USB drive on the desk, his voice rising. "Don't play dumb, Victor. I've got your emails. You helped Richard lock her away, steal her land." Victor's facade cracked, his voice low and defensive. "I handled logistics, Michael. Richard called the shots. You're his heir, don't pretend you're clean." Michael's fists clenched, his voice shaking with fury. "I didn't know. You did, and you hid it." Victor leaned forward, his tone menacing. "Careful, Michael. You're in deep. Claire's family won't take kindly to you rocking the boat." The threat hung heavy, targeting Michael's engagement, a lever to keep him in line. Michael's jaw tightened, his voice resolute. "I'm done being Richard's pawn. And yours." Victor's eyes darkened, but he stood, his voice cold. "You'll regret this." After Victor left, Michael accessed the company server from his laptop, his fingers flying as he copied more of Victor's emails. One caught his eye: a 2007 exchange with Foster, confirming Ellen's transfer to the Beaumont facility, with a note, "Ensure no family contact." Another attached a grainy photo. Young Ellen with 2 children, Sarah and a blond boy, Michael. His breath caught, his heart pounding. Could he be Sarah's brother? The possibility shook him, a truth too vast to grasp yet. He saved the files, his resolve hardening to expose Victor and find Ellen. Meanwhile, Victor's latest scheme targeted Sarah. From a discreet Houston garage, he'd paid a mechanic to cut the brake lines on Sarah's Chevy Silverado, tracking her truck's location via a hacked GPS. The sabotage was meant to silence her before she reached the Beaumont facility, a desperate escalation to protect Richard's empire. But in Huntsville, Tom Jenkins, the burly trucker and James Carter's friend, was at Carter's Auto Repair for a tune-up. Spotting Sarah's truck, he ran a routine check, his keen eyes catching the tampered lines. "What the hell?" he muttered angrily, his gray beard bristling. He fixed the brakes, calling James. "Someone messed with Sarah's truck," he said urgently. "She's in trouble." James's voice was gruff. "Thanks, Tom. I'll warn her." Back at HQ, Claire entered Michael's office, her platinum hair catching the light. Her eyes conflicted. "Victor just called," she said nervously, her voice low. "He says you're digging into things that could ruin the merger. Is it true?" Michael met her gaze, his tone weary. "Claire, Richard's done terrible things. I can't ignore it." Claire's face softened, her voice hesitant. "My family needs this deal, Michael, but I don't want to be part of something wrong." Her conflict, torn between duty and morality, mirrored Michael's, a crack in their arranged bond. David Kim, Michael's loyal assistant, knocked, his glasses glinting. "Sir, I found something," he said quietly, handing over a file. It was a 2005 memo from Richard, ordering Buckner's closure to eliminate distractions. Michael's stomach churned, his voice hoarse. "He destroyed our lives for control." David's eyes were steady, his tone cautious. "Victor's watching you. Be smart about this." Michael nodded, his voice firm. "I will. Thanks, David." The office's buzzing phones faded as Michael stared at the photo of Ellen, Sarah, and himself. The truth was closing in, a storm he couldn't outrun. Victor's threat to Claire was a warning, but Michael's betrayal of Richard's legacy was a line crossed. Sarah was in danger, her truck a target, but Tom's vigilance had saved her for now. Michael pocketed the USB, his mind set on the Huntsville Water Preserve groundbreaking, where he and Sarah would expose Richard. The city's pulse echoed his own, a rhythm of secrets and defiance, propelling him toward a reckoning that would test everything he was. The Huntsville Public Library had 1219 13th St. stood quiet under the late August dusk, its brick facade softened by the glow of streetlights. Inside, the air was cool, filled with the musty scent of old books and the hum of fluorescent lights. Rows of wooden shelves stretched into dimly lit stacks, and computer screens cast a soft blue glow in the study room where Sarah Thompson sat, her curly brown hair tied back, her oil-stained hands clutching a USB drive loaded with Victor Crane's damning emails. The emerald ring on her finger glinted, a symbol of the promise that had brought her and Michael Reynolds back together. Across from her, Michael's blonde hair caught the light, his eyes intense as he spread out forged worker IDs for the Huntsville Water Preserve groundbreaking. Their plan to expose Richard Reynolds' crimes, Ellen Thompson's confinement, the land grab was a high-stakes gamble, and the room buzzed with their shared resolve. James Carter, Sarah's grizzled uncle, leaned against a table, his calloused hands folded, his ex-Marine posture rigid. Lisa Hayes, Sarah's witty best friend, tapped a laptop, her short red hair bouncing as she tested an audio file of Victor's emails. Emma, Sarah's 14-year-old daughter, sat cross-legged, her sketchbook open to a protest sign design, "Truth for Ellen." Her curly hair mirrored Sarah's, her eyes bright with determination. "We play the emails during Richard's speech," Sarah said firmly, her voice steady but fierce. "The press will be there, Forbes, CNN. They'll hear everything." Michael nodded, his tone resolute. "I've got the stage layout. We sneak in as tech crew. Cue the audio from the sound booth." James's voice rumbled, his tone gruff but warm. "Risky, Sarah. Reynolds has security, and Victor's a snake." He paused, his eyes distant, then spoke softly. "Your mom, Ellen, she never gave up. When we were kids, she'd stand up to anyone who tried to take what was ours. She'd be proud of you." Sarah's throat tightened, her voice quiet. "I just want her back, Uncle James." Emma reached for her hand, her tone earnest. "We'll get Grandma, Mom. I know it." The moment bound them, a family forged in pain and purpose, their plan a beacon of hope. Lisa grinned, her voice playful but sharp. "Audio's ready. Victor's voice will be louder than a Texas thunderstorm." She clicked play, and Victor's cold words echoed, "Ensure no family contact." Sarah's jaw clenched, her tone fierce. "That's our weapon." Michael pulled out a photo from the cedar box, young Ellen with Sarah and himself, a hint of their sibling bond. "This is why we're doing it," he said hoarsely, his voice thick with emotion. "For her, for all of us." Emma's sketchbook flipped to a drawing of Ellen, her smile vivid, and she whispered, "She's waiting for us." In Houston, Victor Crane's schemes intensified. From his high-rise, his slick black hair gleaming, he spread rumors of Sarah's criminal past online, hacking local forums to paint her as a fraud. The lies targeted Huntsville's trust, aiming to discredit her before the groundbreaking. But Reverend Paul Miller, the white-haired former chaplain from Buckner, caught wind of the smear at a church meeting. His voice, soft but commanding, rang out in a community post. "Sarah Thompson's integrity is beyond question. These are lies." The post, shared widely, nullified Victor's attack, his plan crumbling under Huntsville's loyalty. Victor slammed his desk, his voice cold. "They're getting too close." David Kim, Michael's loyal assistant, worked covertly from Reynolds Enterprises HQ. His glasses glinted as he emailed a tip to the Houston Chronicle and Dallas Morning News, leaking the groundbreaking significance. Reynolds Enterprises faces scandal. His voice was low, speaking to Michael over a secure line. "Press is on board, but Victor's watching," he said urgently. "Stay sharp." Michael's tone was firm. "Thanks, David. We're ready." The leak amplified the stakes, ensuring media eyes would be on the event, a pressure cooker for Richard's downfall. Sarah opened her phone, recording a backup video. "If we fail," she said steadily, her voice unwavering, "this tells the world what Richard did to my mother." She recounted Ellen's confinement, the land grab, Victor's emails, her eyes blazing with defiance. Lisa watched, her tone admiring. "You're a force, Sarah." James nodded, his voice gruff. "Always have been." Emma added a final touch to her sign, her voice hopeful. "This is for Grandma, right?" Sarah hugged her, her tone soft. "For her, Em, and everyone they hurt." The library's quiet stacks seemed to hold their breath, the weight of their plan palpable. Sarah packed the USB and IDs, her mind on the groundbreaking at Sam Houston Memorial Museum grounds. Victor's failed smear was a warning hiss. Next move would be bolder. The team's unity, forged in shared loss, was their strength, but the risk loomed large. As they left, the library's glow faded, Huntsville's stars emerging above. Michael clutched the photo, his resolve mirroring Sarah's. The groundbreaking was days away, a stage for truth that could free Ellen or destroy them. In Houston, David's leak spread, the press circling, and Victor's schemes simmered, setting the stage for a confrontation that would echo far beyond Texas. The Sam Houston Memorial Museum grounds at 1402 19th, St. Huntsville, Texas, shimmered under a late August sunset, transformed into a stage for the Huntsville Water Preserve groundbreaking. Festive banners fluttered, and spotlights bathed a massive LED wall displaying Reynolds Enterprises' logo. The air buzzed with anticipation, cameras from Forbes, CNN, and the Houston Chronicle flashing like lightning, capturing politicians, investors, and locals gathered on the red carpet. Sarah Thompson and Michael Reynolds slipped through the workers' entrance, their forged tech crew IDs dangling, their hearts pounding. Sarah's curly brown hair was tucked under a baseball cap, her oil-stained hands clutching a USB drive with Victor Crane's incriminating emails. Michael's blonde hair peeked from his cap, his eyes fierce with resolve. Their plan to expose Richard Reynolds' crimes, Ellen Thompson's confinement, the land grab was moments from execution. Backstage, Lisa Hayes, Sarah's quick-witted friend, adjusted audio controls in the sound booth, her short red hair catching the dim light. "Ready when you are," she whispered urgently into a headset, her voice steady. Emma, Sarah's 14-year-old daughter, stood nearby, clutching a protest sign. "Truth for Ellen." Her curly hair bounced, her eyes wide but determined. David Kim's press leak had drawn a media frenzy, and his FBI tip sent hours ago had freed Ellen from the Beaumont facility. Now she was en route, a miracle Sarah barely dared believe. The crowd's murmurs grew as Richard Reynolds took the stage, his tailored suit pristine, his smile polished. "Today, we build a future," he began confidently, his voice booming. Sarah and Michael reached the sound booth, their breath shallow. "Now," Sarah said fiercely, her tone unwavering. Lisa nodded, plugging in the USB. Victor Crane, lurking near the stage, sensed trouble, his slick black hair gleaming as he moved to the audio panel. He'd sabotaged Sarah before, and now he tried to cut the sound, his fingers frantic. But Lisa, anticipating his move, jammed the controls with a hidden override, her voice sharp. "Not today, creep." Victor's face twisted, his plan thwarted, as his own voice erupted from the speakers. "Ensure no family contact. The land transfer must stay clean." The crowd gasped, cameras swiveling, the words exposing Ellen's confinement and the preserve's theft. Richard froze, his smile faltering, his voice stammering. "This is a mistake." Sarah stepped onto the stage, her cap off, her emerald ring glinting. "No mistake," she said loudly, her voice steady. "You faked my mother's death, stole our land." Michael joined her, his tone resolute. "I'm done hiding your lies, Richard." The crowd hushed, a reporter shouting, "That's Sarah Thompson!" Claire Bennett, Michael's fiancée, stood in the VIP section, her platinum hair catching the light, her eyes conflicted. She raised her phone, live streaming, her voice soft. "This is the truth." Her choice to broadcast, defying her family's merger, marked her break from Richard's control. A ripple ran through the crowd as Ellen Thompson entered, her gray hair streaked, her frame frail but her gaze fierce. Supported by James Carter, her brother, she climbed the stage, her steps slow but unyielding. Sarah gasped, her voice breaking. "Mom!" Ellen's warm smile met hers, her voice hoarse but clear. "My girl." The reunion silenced the crowd, tears streaking Sarah's face as she embraced her mother. Emma rushed forward, her sign raised, her voice trembling. "Grandma!" Ellen touched her cheek, her tone tender. "You're so strong, Emma." James stood back, his grizzled face wet, his voice gruff. "We got her back, Sarah." Ellen faced the crowd, her voice steady. "Richard Reynolds locked me away for 20 years, claiming I was unstable. to steal our land's water. I'm not dead. I'm here." The crowd erupted, some standing instinctively, others whispering in shock. Michael stepped forward, holding the cedar box's files, Ellen's fake death certificate, land papers, Victor's emails. "I'm Ellen's son," he said firmly, his voice carrying. "Sarah's brother. Richard raised me as his heir, but I renounce him." The sibling reveal stunned the audience, cameras flashing furiously. Richard lunged for the microphone, his voice desperate. "Lies! You're betraying me, Michael." But Agent Laura Bennett, an FBI lead with short black hair, ascended the stage, her tone stern. "Richard Reynolds, you're under arrest for forgery, extortion, and illegal detention." She cuffed him, her voice steady as sirens wailed, FBI SUVs circling. Richard's face drained, his eyes hollow, his empire crumbling before millions on Claire's live stream. Victor, cornered, slipped into the crowd, his schemes exposed. The crowd roared, a mix of shock and triumph, as Richard was led away. Sarah held Ellen, her voice choked. "We did it, Mom!" Michael joined them, his tone raw. "We're family now." Claire approached, her voice quiet. "I'm sorry, Michael. I'm with you." Her disavowal of Richard sealed her shift to truth. The stage, once a symbol of corporate greed, became a platform for justice, the LED wall frozen on Reynolds' logo, now a relic. As the crowd dispersed, Sarah's ring glowed, a promise kept. The fight was won, but their family's healing was just beginning. A new legacy waiting to rise from the ashes of Richard's fall. 6 months after the seismic confrontation at the Huntsville Water Preserve groundbreaking, the February sun bathed Ellen's Haven, a new ecological park at 1836 Sam Houston Ave, Huntsville, Texas, in a gentle glow. Wildflowers bloomed across rolling meadows, their vibrant hues framing a pristine stream, the underground water source once coveted by Richard Reynolds. Children's laughter echoed from a playground, and a sleek building stood proudly. Ellen's Academy, a vocational school for youth of color, immigrants, and orphans. Carter's Auto Repair, once a weathered shop at 3011 TX19, had transformed into a bustling training center, its freshly painted walls adorned with a sign, "Monroe Auto Works. We fix cars. We mend lives." Sarah Thompson stood in its workshop, her curly brown hair tied back, her technical jacket bearing the Thompson Foundation logo. The emerald ring on her finger gleamed, a symbol of promises kept and a family reborn. Sarah guided a group of single mothers through a carburetor rebuild, her voice clear and patient. "It's about precision, not muscle," she said warmly, adjusting a trainee's grip. "Like raising kids' steady hands, sharp mind." A young woman, visibly pregnant, smiled shyly, her voice soft. "Miss Sarah, nobody's ever taught me like this before." Sarah knelt beside her, her tone gentle. "I was you once. Someone gave me a chance. Now it's yours." The workshop hummed with purpose, tools clanking, students learning, a testament to Sarah's vision of empowerment. Emma, now 15, sketched nearby, her curly hair bouncing, her protest sign from the groundbreaking framed on the wall, "Truth for Ellen." Ellen Thompson, her gray hair catching the light, sat on the porch, a tray of lemonade on a wooden table crafted by her brother, James Carter. At 58, her frame was still frail from 20 years of confinement, but her warm smile radiated strength. She watched Emma draw, her voice tender. "You've got your mother's fire, sweetheart." Emma grinned, her tone playful. "And your eyes, Grandma." Ellen's legal status, restored by a federal court ruling that declared her fake death certificate fraudulent, was a victory. But her bond with Emma was her true salvation. She sipped lemonade, her voice reflective. "They tried to erase me, but you all brought me back." Michael Thompson, having shed the Reynolds name, walked into the workshop, his blonde hair slightly tousled, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He carried files for a new children's shelter in Houston, his role as head of the Thompson Foundation, a far cry from his CEO days. "Open Heart sent a list," he said briskly, handing Sarah a document. 12 orphans for next month's training. Free transport set." Sarah nodded, her tone grateful. "Good work, Michael." He smiled, his voice warm. "Feels right, doesn't it?" Their sibling bond, forged in the crucible of Richard's downfall, was unshakable, rooted in shared loss and rediscovered truth. James Carter, now honorary principal of Ellen's Academy, oversaw mechanics training, his grizzled face softened by pride. "These kids are the future," he said gruffly, watching students weld. Lisa Hayes, Sarah's best friend, managed the center's books, her short red hair bouncing as she joked, "We're fixing more than cars now." Maria Lopez, the community advocate, led workshops for immigrants, her vibrant energy infectious. Tom Jenkins, the trucker who'd saved Sarah's truck, volunteered as a driver, his gray beard framing a kind smile. The community, once fractured by Reynolds' greed, had rallied their collective spirit, a new legacy. Victor Crane, fired and disgraced, had tried to sue Sarah, claiming defamation, but his case collapsed for lack of evidence, a final whimper of his failed schemes. In New York, Richard faced 23 federal charges, his empire dismantled, his name a cautionary tale. The FBI's probe into his network adoption fraud, medical cover-ups continued, but in Huntsville, the focus was healing. Ellen's Haven preserved the water source, its paths lined with plaques honoring displaced families, a vow Michael upheld through letters to their heirs, promising restitution. At the Academy's opening, Emma took the stage, her voice clear. "Truth doesn't just free us," she said earnestly, holding Ellen's hand. "It builds something better." The crowd, locals, trainees, reporters cheered, their applause a thunder of hope. Sarah watched, her eyes misty, her tone soft. "You're my hero, Em." Michael joined them, his voice choked. "This is home." Ellen's gaze settled on the ring, her tone wistful. "That ring kept us together, even when they tried to tear us apart." The park's wildflowers swayed, the stream sparkling, a living testament to their triumph. Sarah, Michael, Ellen, and Emma sat together, lemonade glasses clinking, their laughter a symphony of renewal. The fight had been brutal, but the legacy was beautiful. Family whole, a community empowered, a promise redeemed. As the sun dipped, Sarah's voice rose, her tone heartfelt. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe. Let's spread the truth, because one spark can light a generation. The ring glowed, a circle unbroken, and Huntsville shone, a beacon of hope for those who'd never be erased again.